The whole face of this whole thing has changed. It's easier to get diagnosed, and treatment is not so scary. It's just about getting knowledge out there and getting people to understand that they can take charge of their health care. They can and should be monitoring their breathing and sleep. There's nothing more fundamental to life than our breathing.
New choices, new players, new models of care. You know consumer first healthcare is everywhere. For us to build the future, to see what's new, we gotta look at the world from a different point of view. Consumer innovation ain't going away. I say it's here to stay. Today it leads the way. We gotta drop the silos. We're all the same team. Experience, business, tech, and marketing. So join us now. Join the revolution. Consumer first health is the evolution. Status quo or like status no. Yeah, this is the healthcare rap. Yo, come on, let's go.
Welcome back to the leading podcast about consumer-centered healthcare. What if healthcare was actually centered around what consumers need and expect? We're talking with leaders who are making it happen, one experience at a time. I'm Jared Johnson, and this is episode 398. Today, we have the Flava of the week about F45 teaming up to add GLP-1 medications to their on-demand fitness and nutrition tools. How does it work, and why should we cheer on similar offerings that lead consumers down the path to better health? I'll talk about that. Then we welcome Kirk Huntsman, CEO of Vivos Therapeutics, to give us hope for sleep apnea, a condition that an estimated 39 million U.S. adults suffer through, and how taking charge of our health quite literally starts with our breathing. It's time for the awesomeness. Are you ready? Let's go.
Flava of the week.
We're getting a better idea of what's possible with connected fitness, especially when you add telehealth and now GLP-1s to traditional fitness offerings. One of the latest partnerships is boutique fitness franchise company F45 Training, which is deepening its partnership with telehealth provider Dr. B to combine GLP-1 medications with their on-demand fitness and nutrition tools. Starting at $249 per month, members of the program will receive a letter of medical necessity to access HSA or FSA funds, monthly consultations with a licensed medical provider, unlimited check-ins, compounded GLP-1 medications delivered to their door, access to F45's app, discounts for upgrading to an F45 in-studio membership, and annual blood work at Quest Diagnostics. Their CEO, Tom Dowd, said that they're dedicated to empowering all people to achieve sustainable health and longevity. While GLP-1 medication is not suitable for everyone, it can be a valuable tool for some individuals on their weight loss journey. This partnership ensures access to resistance training and nutritional programs essential for successful outcomes. He pointed out that without such tools in place, up to 50% of weight loss during GLP-1 treatment can come from valuable muscle rather than fat. The new offering expands on F45 and Dr. B's initial partnership launched last March, which allows current members with HSA or FSA accounts to consult the telehealth platform to determine eligibility for a letter of medical necessity for reimbursement. Now, I bet you're starting to connect the dots like we are. Last June, we spotlighted the partnership between Equinox and Function Health, which is a 1%er offering to be sure, with its 5-figure price tag, but it ultimately shows that there's room at the intersection of fitness and longevity. Lower on that price continuum is the partnership we brought up a couple of weeks ago, where Lifetime is offering Dexcom continuous glucose monitors directly to members through its app. If you know me at all, you know that offerings like this easily pass my test for being consumer-centered, and preventive at that. I do want to issue a word of caution, however. We have yet to see a lot of offerings like this succeed long-term, and in my opinion, we don't need to overthink the reasons why. Anything fitness-related is still all about individuals' behavior change, which means that it's about getting someone to feel that it's worth changing their habits in order to feel better and have a higher quality of life. And that, to me, all comes down to marketing. So in this case, I would hope that F45 and Dr. B understand the assignment and are exceptional at marketing, because that's what it will take to succeed here. I'm rooting for that to happen, and I hope and expect to see more offerings in this space in the very near future, because a better world is one where more of us find the right path to health and wellness, and fewer have to be directed to the emergency room. Let's cheer on more offerings that use combinations of fitness and GLP-1s to lead consumers down the path to better health. That's another way that we'll build the healthcare of tomorrow. And that's the Flava of the week.
The flow, the flow, the flow.
Hey everyone, let's get into the flow. Today, we're talking about an issue that can get lost, I feel like, among so many other aspects of our health and wellness, but it's estimated that around 39 million adults in the US have this condition. We're talking about obstructive sleep apnea, or OSA. And my guest today is Kirk Huntsman, the CEO and co-founder of Vivos Therapeutics. In our brief pre-show chat, we talked about how healthcare at the end of the day is an individual matter. So each of us has to just feel some level of responsibility. At some point, we can't just say, hey, insurance is going to make choices for us. Hey, my doctor's going to make choices for me. There's so many of the day-to-day health and wellness choices that happen in between. And that's where we're living right now on this podcast is helping to understand those better. And so when we're talking about a condition like what we're going to address today about sleep apnea, I know there's a lot to it. So let's dive in a little bit. Let's help our listeners get to know you a little bit better. What's something our listeners might not know about you?
I've been married for almost 45 years. Not very many people can say that anymore. I have 9 grandkids, 4 children, 9 grandkids. Just thoroughly enjoy. In fact, we were talking earlier. I live in Colorado here. We were up skiing with the grandkids this last week and just enjoy all that. But I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've launched some great companies that have all tried to make a difference in the world. Vivos Therapeutics happens to be my favorite of all of them, and the one that we're talking about today. We happen to be in the business of helping people with their breathing and sleep issues. So I think that's one of the reasons why we're having this conversation. It's a very timely topic for our society today.
For sure. And it is one of those times I wish we were on video because people would be able to see the falling snow behind you. Like it is quite apropos. I mean, it's very, very picturesque. So, which goes with the territory of where you're based here. So let's talk about Vivos a little bit. What is Vivos and what problem are you trying to solve specifically?
Yeah, so Vivos Therapeutics is a company that is dedicated to helping people solve their breathing and sleep issues. And those things are inextricably interwoven and intertwined here. When people can't breathe properly, especially at night, they can't sleep properly. They don't get the deep sleep that they need to rejuvenate and renew their minds and their bodies. And frankly, it throws off we now know that it throws off all of the major systems from cardiovascular health to the endocrine system to just virtually every major system in the body ceases to function normally when you can't get deep rejuvenating sleep. And so breathing is a part of that. Sleep is a part of that. And our company produces medical devices that are highly differentiated, highly proprietary to us. And we actually solve sleep and breathing problems for people that are on CPAP. You think of all the tens of millions of people on CPAP. There's 1 billion people around the world that have breathing and sleep issues. And we're right in the middle of trying to solve all that. So there's a huge market for us to work in globally. And we're focused right here in America, but we have providers around the world that use our products and help people with their breathing and sleep.
So the stat that I brought up of an estimated 39 million adults in the US have sleep apnea. What other context is useful for us to know to understand like the breadth of the problem?
Well, the first thing to know is that it's really hard to get really a sense of the scale and scope of this. If you think about sleep apnea and you just sort of take the estimate of 1 billion people, there's a little under 8 billion people on planet Earth. That means 1 out of every 8 people globally is walking around with this condition. If you apply that to the United States, you get more than 39 million, right? You get a lot of people. And that doesn't even, typically they don't count the kids in that too. So in the United States, our estimates from the testing, we do nearly 80,000 sleep tests a year in the United States alone. And we find that almost 1 out of 2 people have this condition. And the problem has been that people haven't had access to proper diagnoses. But technology is changing all that. And now what used to require an in-lab overnight sleep test to get a confirming diagnosis of sleep apnea can now be done in the convenience of someone's own home, their own bedroom. And it can be done with a cell phone and a little ring device that just goes on your finger, automatically connects via Bluetooth to your phone. And overnight, you get a lab quality, clinical grade report that's a sleep study that a physician, a qualified board certified physician, can actually interpret for you. And instead of a $4,000 overnight experience at a sleep lab, it's a $50 experience at home. And so access through technology to convenient, inexpensive, potentially ubiquitous technology has opened the door for more and more and more people to realize and monitor their condition of sleep. And so now that we're finding out more and more people have this, we're actually able to target and assist and inform many more people about their status. So the technology, which I know your podcast is really, high on, especially as it pertains to consumers taking charge of their own healthcare. I mean, this is right up the alley at the leading edge of this as people become more aware of sleep and breathing as a fundamental condition to health. I had a cardiologist recently tell me that sleep apnea is cardiovascular disease. And if you think about the implications of that from a leading cardiologist, he runs 9 hospital centers in the Chicago area, all cardiology clinics. And he is very, very unambiguous about his feelings about obstructive sleep apnea he says, look, Kirk, we can go as cardiologists, we can put stents in, we can open up arteries, we can do all these different things. At the end of the day, if our patients come back out and they have sleep apnea, they will die sooner, the stents will fail faster, everything will start to fail faster if we don't address their fundamental issue of obstructive sleep apnea. And so he's advocating for, there's 5 vital signs that doctors take, the body temperature and the heart rate and breathing rate and all those there's 5 basic ones. He wants to add a 6th where people monitor their obstructive sleep apnea and their breathing at night. So this is becoming a very timely, very salient topic, even out there among the specialists that are dealing with the fallout of obstructive sleep apnea.
There are legit reasons why people don't pursue a correction of something like sleep apnea. Like from your standpoint, why is it still so underdiagnosed?
So there are 2 challenges with obstructive sleep apnea. The first is that you don't feel it. You don't wake up in the morning and go, oh, I got obstructive sleep apnea. No, you wake up in the morning and you got no energy. And you feel sluggish, and you got this brain fog, and you've got this lack of energy throughout the day, and you're seeing all the downstream symptoms. And you go to your doctor, you say, I just don't have any energy. I'm not feeling well. Something's not right. I don't know what it is. And there's a million different things that physician can think about as they formulate some type of diagnosis of your condition. So what happens is that unless a physician has the cognitive awareness to talk about sleep and to inquire about sleep and to do a sleep test, then they're never going to know. And the problem has been that it's been twofold. First of all, the confirming diagnosis has historically been a polysomnogram or a PSG, which means you got to schlep your pajamas over to a sleep lab and get undressed and then get 54 different sensors all over your body that are going to monitor all kinds of cognitive and electronic impulse types things throughout the night. And what's going to happen is that patients don't want to do that. It's a barrier to get diagnosed. Technology, as I mentioned earlier, has solved that to a large degree, but the barrier of diagnosis is the first problem, the cost associated with that, the inconvenience associated with that, and now the ability of patients to take charge of that by actually saying, you know what, I'll pay the $50 or $100, whatever, I'll pay that just to know myself, or I'll get my insurance company to cover that. Insurance companies will pay for these home sleep tests now. So the first barrier has been just sort of knowing that sleep is a possibility here to explain all the different things that are going on. The second aspect of it is the treatment that has historically been offered to patients has been so unappealing. I mean, you're a young guy, right? Do you want to, and by the way, we treat a lot of young guys in their 30s and 40s. We're not talking about old Uncle Jim who is overweight and is, snoring up a chimney and all those. We're not talking about that as the core constituency. Breathing and sleep disorders occur from the earliest stages of life through childhood and on into adulthood and can last for somebody's entire life, or they can develop over the course of time. So the therapy, though, if you know that at the end of that journey, you're going to be put into a Darth Vader mask and be required to wear a CPAP machine every night for the rest of your life, you'd rather not even know about your condition and hope that it just goes away. And so now with what Vivos does, where we're actually within 12 months, we're able to take a patient and reverse the symptoms and dramatically either reduce those symptoms or eliminate sleep apnea altogether. The whole face of this whole thing has changed. It's easier to get diagnosed, and treatment is not so scary. It's just about getting knowledge out there and getting people to understand that they can take charge of their health care. They can and should be monitoring their breathing and sleep. There's nothing more fundamental to life than our breathing. It's the first thing we do when we're born, is we take that first inhalation, and it's the last thing we do. If you've ever stood at the bedside of somebody who dies, the last thing they do is they exhale. And so the first thing we do is inhale, the last thing we do is exhale, and in between, we've got to breathe. And we've got to breathe right while we're asleep in order to sleep deeply and get that rejuvenating sort of experience where our brain literally flushes the toxins out when we're in deep sleep. Our system actually uses our sleep to rebuild and rejuvenate the tissues of our body that are essential for life. And so when we interrupt those patterns, there's nothing more fundamental to good health and wellness than having good breathing habits and good sleep.
Walk us through how this works. Is this a direct-to-consumer play? Is this through their provider? Is it through their insurance or their employer? Like, where would they start to explore it?
Well, first of all, I think the journey begins with a conversation between a patient and their provider, right? And there are Vivos-trained providers around the country, most of them dentists, that deliver our devices, our oral appliances. What happens is that a dentist is going to be involved, but not involved as the sole provider in the solution. And that's really important to know because obstructive sleep apnea is a complex condition. It's not a simple thing. And so it does take a multidisciplinary approach. You need to have the cooperation and buy-in of a physician, a certified sleep physician. You need to have a qualified dentist that can deliver this. And sometimes you need to have some adjunctive therapy as well. There might be some chiropractic care. So when we think about obstructive sleep apnea, the important thing to know is the word obstruction. The obstruction in sleep and the apnea. The apnea is a closing off of the airway. So if our airway collapses while we're trying to breathe, we literally can't get the air into our lungs. And when we can't get the air into our lungs because of a collapse, that's called an apnea. And they count the number of apnea events in the course of an hour that last at least 10 seconds, and they come up with what they call an apnea-hypopnea index. It's a little more complicated than that, but if you think about it as how many times per hour does my airway collapse for at least 10 seconds, that's going to give you a rough idea. They count that, and they come up with an index. So if you have more than 30 events per hour, you've actually got severe sleep apnea. And about 20% of people that have sleep apnea have severe sleep apnea. And it's in the moderate to severe range where patients are actually at the highest risk for a cardiovascular event, a heart attack, stroke, high blood pressure, all of the things that, again, we talked about the correlation between sleep apnea and cardiovascular disease, which is the number one killer of people in the United States. 650,000 people a year, their lives will be taken from cardiovascular events and cardiovascular disease. And sleep apnea is the silent sort of progenitor of all of that stuff behind the scenes that people don't know it. And this is why the cardiologists love what we're doing, because we're getting at the root of what they're dealing with at the end stage of all these patients that they're having to go in and put stents in, and they're having to do all these heroic open heart type things, when we can address a lot of these things if we get in early and we intervene and get their sleep apnea under control.
Love it. I love it. I mean, just the thought of there's more that can be done, that this is a new option, that intervention is possible, and that we have this chance to kind of break that cycle, if you will, of what it does if you don't address it at all. And probably everyone knows dealing with it themselves or knows somebody very clearly in their life who is dealing with this on a regular basis. So totally important here. what's being innovated right now? What else, is useful for our listeners to know about how treatments for sleep apnea are advancing and innovating right now?
The most important thing for listeners to know, and first of all, you're exactly right. Rarely do I do a podcast or an interview, whether it's with somebody like yourself who's involved in the healthcare space, or whether I'm dealing with investment bankers on Wall Street, right? It's every one of these conversations I have, there's people in that individual's life or somebody on the call who is dealing with this issue with a child, a spouse, a family member. It's everywhere. And so the first thing to know is that historically, medicine has gone and almost like a default mechanism where, you have sleep apnea, here's a CPAP. And as a consumer, you need to know that CPAP is not the only option. And you don't have to be relegated to wearing a CPAP contraption every night for the rest of your life. And that you don't have to have a surgical implant to correct the problem. There are very effective technologies such as Vivos that are coming online and coming into the marketplace now that offer a third rail option that says, hey, look, if you can fix this problem in a matter of months if you wear these oral devices and you follow the protocols and you go through the Vivos therapy and you can actually change the anatomy non-surgically of your airway. And once you've done that, you're done for life. So you don't have to wear a device every night for life. You don't have to look like Darth Vader in the bedroom. You don't have to endure the embarrassment, humiliation of having to schlep your CPAP machine around on business trips or family vacations or any of that sort of thing. This is a new day, and you can get diagnosed in the comfort of your own home. So there's really, for people who care about their health and wellness, for people who care about their cardiovascular health, their overall health and wellness, we have linked sleep apnea to every major chronic illness that plagues modern man, from cancer rates to cardiovascular diseases I've mentioned, to hypertension, to diabetes, and all of these different things that are plaguing modern man. They're all made worse or they're caused by obstructive sleep apnea. So anybody that's concerned about their health and wellness needs to begin at the beginning, which is let's check out the breathing and sleep. And if we get that right, we've got a great shot at getting the rest of it right downstream. But a lot of it has to do with how we form from the earliest stages of life. Even in the womb, neonatally, we begin to develop the physiological structures where there's a lack of development in our jaws and in our oral cavity and in our airway that, if not corrected early in life, is going to lead to a lifetime of challenges that unless you talk to somebody who can connect the dots right for you, then you're going to be on a journey to try to just discover and figure it out. And it's a long, circuitous way to figure out, hey, it's really my breathing and sleep. And if I fix that, then I can fix a lot of other stuff.
Fascinating. It truly is how interconnected it is with practically every other aspect of our health and wellness today. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you, Kirk. One last question. What gives you hope for the future of healthcare in our country? What gets you excited? What gets you hopeful for our society being able to be healthier in the future?
There were a lot of very tragic things that happened in the pandemic, and there's just no doubt about it. It was just a hard time for everyone. But if there was something that came out of the pandemic, it was that people have developed a general, I don't want to say mistrust, but they developed a general sense of, you know what? I need to educate myself, and I need to not just rely in a reflection or a reaction to if my doctor says something, then I automatically do it. Patients are taking charge and feeling a sense of, I have to take responsibility for my own health and wellness. So when you ask me that question, immediately what comes to mind is patients are now beginning to ask the right kinds of questions. They're going out and they're getting on the internet and they're checking things out and they're actually asking the right kinds of questions that sometimes their providers haven't been asking. And look, I deal with physicians of all stripes every day, and I'm amazed at the general lack of awareness of the implications of sleep and breathing on overall health and wellness among physicians. So it's up to patients to ask the right questions. And as they do, they're going to get better answers. And as they get better answers and their physicians are pushed to make sure that they're up to speed on the latest knowledge and the latest technology, that's always going to help. And it's always going to lead to better treatment, better informed compliance by patients, better information coming from physicians, and better outcomes at the end of the day. And I think that's where I think this is going. When patients take charge and they ask the right questions, good things are going to happen. And we hope to be a part of that discussion.
Kirk, it's been such a pleasure. This has been enlightening and appreciate your time here. Thanks so much for joining us on the program.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jared. I really appreciate it.